At least 8 Russian missiles struck the city of Vinnytsia, Ukrainian officials said Sunday, again calling for Western forces to close the skies over Ukraine on the 11th day of war. In a video message, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the brutal, cynical missile strike has completely destroyed the airport in Vinnytsia, a large city in west-central Ukraine located far from the front line. He described the city as peaceful and as having never posed a threat to Russia in any way. They continue total destruction of our infrastructure, our life built by us, our parents and grandparents, generations of Ukrainians, Zelensky said of the Russian military. We repeat every day. Close the sky over Ukraine. Close it for all Russian missiles, Russian combat aircraft, for all these terrorists. Make a humanitarian air zone without rockets, without air bombs. We are people, and it is your humanitarian duty to protect us, to protect people, and you can do it, he continued. If you do not do that, if you at least do not give us aircraft for us to be able to protect ourselves, there can only be one conclusion. You also want us to be slowly killed, Zelensky said. This is also the responsibility of the world's politicians, Western leaders, today and forever. Ukraine Minister of Foreign Affairs Dmytro Kuleba tweeted video of the airstrike against Vinnytsia. 8 Russian cruise missiles hit Vinnytsia, a large city far from the front line. Putin continues his cowardly barbaric missile strikes, air bombardment of civilians, he wrote. Help us close the sky and save lives. Provide air and missile defense, combat aircraft. Stop Russian terrorism. On March 6, at about 1:35 p.m., near the village of Havrishivka, near Vinnytsia, as a result of rocket fire, a fire broke out in a fuel and storage depot on an area of about 1,000 square meters, and partially destroyed the administrative building. According to the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, as of 2:35 p.m., 4 people had been released from the rubble, including 1 person. Search and rescue operations are underway on the partially destroyed building. 113 people and 23 units of equipment were involved from the SES. Commenting on the situation, the head of the Vinnytsia Regional State Administration Serhiy Borzov noted that as a result of a missile strike at the airport in Vinnytsia there were casualties among civilians and the military, but the exact figures are unknown. He said this during a telethon, noting that the blow came only at the airfield, completely destroying the tower and control point. Unfortunately, there are civilian and military casualties. The SES is dismantling the blockages. We will clarify the number of losses later, because the blockages are very large and equipment has been used. The fire is currently localized. We will put it out. The SES is dismantling slabs, blockages. We hope to find more people alive, said Serhiy Borzov. At the same time, he confirmed that 8 missiles had been fired at the airport. There are currently 2 versions from which they could be released. The first, from the Black Sea, the second, from Transnistria. According to the head of the regional state administration, the exact information will be provided to the military later. Meanwhile, the Moldovan Ministry of Defense has already announced on its Facebook page that there were no missile launches at the Vinnytsia airport from the Transnistrian region. An airport in central Ukraine was completely destroyed by 8 Russian missiles, the Ukrainian president confirmed in an address as he urged the West to send more aircraft. Shocking footage shared online appears to show an airfield in Vinnytsia destroyed by the attack. In a translation of the impassioned address, which was shared on social media, Volodymyr Zelensky said the peaceful Vinnytsia just was bombed. He added, "We repeat every day, close the sky over Ukraine. Close for all Russian missiles, for Russian combat aircraft, for all their terrorists. If you don't give us at least planes so we can protect ourselves, there's only one thing to conclude. You want us to be killed very slowly." The barraged airport, which is roughly a 4-hour drive away from Kyiv according to Google Maps, has been pictured in videos and photos online. Thick black smoke can be seen in the distance of footage shared, said to be coming from the wrecked airport in the distance. Kyiv independent defense reporter Ilya Ponomarenko shared a photo of the airfield being destroyed on Twitter, saying it has been completely destroyed. European Union leader Charles Michel said closing Ukraine's airspace could spark a world war. Zelensky has repeatedly called on NATO countries to stop the Russian onslaught on his country by imposing a no-fly zone. Western leaders have refused for fear of triggering a wider war in Europe. Deploying fighter jets over Ukraine could in current circumstances be considered as NATO's entry into the war and therefore risk World War III, Mr. Michel said in an interview with the public broadcaster France Inter. Mr. Michel denied that economic sanctions against Russia constitute a war of the EU or NATO against Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin has linked the West's economic punishment for his invasion of Ukraine to declaring war on Moscow. Mr. Michel said European and American allies imposed sanctions to create pressure and hurt the Russian regime, not the people. This comes following a second consecutive day of a ceasefire being broken as civilian safe passage from Ukraine's besieged eastern port city of Mariupol was halted, the International Committee of the Red Cross said. It added, amid devastating scenes of human suffering in Mariupol, a second attempt today to start evacuating an estimated 200,000 people out of the city came to a halt. The failed attempts yesterday and today underscore the absence of a detailed and functioning agreement between the parties to the conflict. Zelensky today also warned that Russian forces are preparing to shell Odessa, a historic port city on the Black Sea coast. Russia has made progress in southern Ukraine since its invasion 11 days ago, overrunning the city of Kherson and shelling the port of Mariupol, but Odessa has so far been largely spared. The Ukrainian leader has consistently called on the West for more support from Russian attacks in the air. In a defiant address yesterday morning, he urged Ukrainians to continue fighting Putin's forces. The comic-turned-wartime president then thundered what more is needed to convince Joe Biden to enforce a no-fly zone, an action which could widen the war and suck in NATO, after he accused the West of cowardice in the face of Russian aggression.